Hello, everyone. We're glad you could make it to our class and our meeting today. We find ourselves in the period of what's called the 3 weeks, which is the time between the negative events which happened in Israel historically. That is from the beginning of the period of the destruction of the temples. It happened that the first temple and the second temple were both destroyed in the same periods of time, and we consider these what's called the 3 weeks, which starts at the 17th of Tammuz, the Hebrew date 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av. In this 3 week period, um, we reduce the amount of joyous activity we do, but obviously, since Hasidim do everything with simcha and joy, we have a very famous expression that we reduce the amount of simcha, but with joy, and we work through this period. Specifically, also in this week is the week when we're going to read in the Torah the Parshas Devorim, the section on Devorim, which we start a new book, the fifth book of the Torah called Devorim, Deuteronomy, and we read there that Moses has been told by Hashem that he won't take the Jews into Israel. It'll be Joshua, and he then spends what is his last weeks alive physically on earth. He spends his last week's exhortation to the Bnei Israel, so that he does a revision of events which have led up to up to the point where they're standing at the shores of the Jordan, opposite Jericho, ready to enter the Holy Land. One of the things that he mentions is the story of the spies, and how they have to, because of the negativity which happened with the spies, the negative result. They have spent 40 years, 39 years traversing in the wilderness. One generation passes away, a new generation is there ready to go into the land of Israel. So that puts the context of today's class. Because we will be talking about the conjunction of these events, the conjunction of the destruction of the two temple period, which happened many years post, and the time of Moses speaking to the Jewish nation, as well as some other issues, with something from the Haftarah, from the readings of the prophets that we have at this time, and we're going to join them together. But first, I want to tell you an interesting story. One of my friends, he had the opportunity. He's a teacher, but then in the summer period when he wasn't teaching at school, he took upon himself a good idea that he was going to visit a Jewish neighborhood that was close to Brooklyn. He's a Brooklyn person, so he was going to go to the Queens district. He's going to some people that he knew in some shops, and go talk to them, visit them, and do some what we call Mivtzoim. We can do mitzvah campaigns with the people, and take that opportunity in his summer months. It happened he wanted to do that particularly because his mother had passed away, and he was saying Kaddish for his mother. So his plan was that he was going to talk to his friends, make a minyan, say Kaddish at that minyan, and that's what he did. He took an opportunity, went at like 12 o'clock, met some of the people in the shops, organized a space where they could make a minyan. So not everybody in every single shop was happy to talk to him about Jewish things. Some having had the experience myself, and that's what we do. That's sometimes what we did when we were still rabbi students. We used to go to different areas, do Mivtzoim activity. That's the Mivtzoim campaigns for an increase in mitzvahs. And we used to visit many people, and I had you get some various responses, sometimes more positive, sometimes less positive, but you go ahead. So that's what my friend did. He went to the Queens area, and he met with some acquaintances, got some people, and because he told them that he's saying Kaddish and he really wants them to come to his minyan, people people don't refuse that often to come to a minyan, and so a person can say Kaddish. Everybody understands the intensity of that. So that's what he did, and he was finding a measure of success, and he was able to do his minyan and say Kaddish for a number of weeks, for his summer period. At one point in time, and this is when he went back, and we're talking about many years ago. So he came back home, and he decided that he would write a letter to the Rebbe informing him what he had done, what he was in the middle of organizing, and he took pen to paper. He reported what he was doing to the Rebbe, and that he was organizing his minyan, and he had an expectation that the Rebbe might reply to his letter, his note, and in some sort of way. So he put in a note, and in those days when we used to put in a note to the Rebbe, if there was an answer, you got an answer reasonably quickly. Not necessarily a full-blown letter, but some sort of note. And what happened was he had this expectation, perhaps the next day or the day after. So one day he pops his head into the Rebbe's secretariat, and he asks one of the secretaries, is there some sort of response? No response, no response. And that's what it was. He was somewhat hesitant. He didn't get an answer, but that was okay. Not everything needs an answer. At one of the talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, 2 or 3 weeks later, in the middle of while the Rebbe was explaining some Torah thoughts, the Rebbe mentioned the idea that some people go out into the to visit people, and they make a minyan. One of the positives of doing a positive thing and going to people and visiting people on a mitzvah campaign was that you should gather people together, and at that opportunity of gathering, of getting people together, people from their different businesses, different people collect together. What you can do is get them to pray together. That was his minyan. Get them to do an act of goodness and kindness, and that by having a pushka, a tzedakah box at that time, and giving a Torah word, and that way people will achieve the advantage of doing Torah, Avodah, mitzvahs, and mitzvah tzedakah, meaning learning Torah, doing prayer, and doing a good idea. So, but the Rebbe continued, and then he said this is in fact the inner meaning of it, why a person has to, why a person has a business. The Rebbe continued in saying that because that the entire purpose of that business and being at that particular point, being at that particular location, is that this business can house a minyan doing something positive, and where people can learn and give give tzedakah. So this man felt elated that even though it wasn't connected at all to what the Rebbe was talking about, the Rebbe had mentioned his activities, and he took that as the Rebbe's positive response to what he was doing. So as he said, he was a teacher. So this happened through the summer, and when the school year started again, he resumed teaching and doing this positive thing. So he had done this positive thing over the summertime. So he was exceptionally happy about that, and that the Rebbe had given him this this level of positivity about it. So so this teaches us something that we should and we can take every opportunity, that when we do something that we have to make our mindset that the entire we might think that we go out to business for the business point of view, but the Rebbe changed our mindset. The Rebbe changes our mindset, and he elevated the entire business and all the work that a person can do it by trying to understand that we are there to transform. We are there to transform the world into a better place. And the Rebbe said, the building where your business is housed, that business, its whole entire purpose is there for a minyan, and that entire purpose for the toil that you have to do in the business, that toil is therefore, so is Hashem provided a method and an entire world or a universe, so that the positive deeds and the positive activities that we do should find a building, a place of this. So so this is an idea for any person who's got a business or a shop, that he could house a minyan or make his place a house for doing this. Now, why do I bring this? Why do I bring this particular story and mention it today? Because in this period of the 3 weeks, in this period of time that we talk about the destruction of the temple, of the Jewish temple, this is something that we want to mention, because the last Shabbos, this particular Shabbos that we're going to go, this Shabbos is called Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos of vision. Why? Because the Haftarah that we're going to read, the portion in the service that we'll read, besides the portion of the Torah that we'll read, we also read a portion from the prophets, and in that portion of the prophets, which is assigned for this week, which is the last Shabbos before the end of the 3-week period. It's called Shabbos Chazon, and it's called the vision of Isaiah. The vision of Isaiah is that he foretells the destruction of the temple, but he also talks at the end. It also talks at the end of the positive. What is the positive? The positive is that there's an assurance that there will be a rebuilding of the temple. There will be the idea of the rebuilding of the temple, and the expression and the verses that is mentioned is Zion, Zion b'mishpat tipora, that Zion will be rebuilt with tzedakah, with righteousness, with mishpat, and shaveh with tzedakah, and the returnees will come back with or through tzedakah. And we're going to examine that phrase a little bit. So the idea is that we should be rebuilding. So I brought this story that we just mentioned before, because in any negative circumstances, we should be thinking of this idea of what the prophet is telling us, that there is the instruction about rebuilding of the Torah, the rebuilding of our lives, rebuilding of our Jewish environment. So even though we've gone through destruction, even though we've gone through negative periods, there's this assurance from God that there will be this real rebuilding phase. So therefore, this guy my friend who had made that minyan over the summer period had done some sort of step in relationship into rebuilding. Yeah, he changed our focus. It changed the focus of that period of the summer period, which potentially is a period when many people aren't around to do things. But he gathered, and the businesses might not be so active as in America, when the summer period, a lot of people go off for their vacations, and the activities in this business might not be so. But the emphasis is that the whole purpose of that business is for the purposes of enhancing and rebuilding our buildings and through Torah, through learning of Torah and doing good deeds, as expressed by giving the tzedakah and the prayer itself. Now, so this week and in this Parshas Devorim, we read in the Torah, and it, as I mentioned earlier, the Parsha, Moses recounts the story of the 12 tribes, the 12 leaders who went on behalf of their tribes to investigate Israel, so that the land of Israel, in order that they could take over the land. So they should move ahead and take over the land. The expression that's used as in the commandment to go investigate the land is an interesting expression that's used in the Torah. The Hebrew word for spies is meraklim, and that's what we call them. When we call the 12 spies that went on behalf of the Jewish nation, each person ahead of their tribe, that we call them the meraklim, we call them the spies. But the verse that Moses uses, the word that Moses uses as the instruction, but when they are to move ahead, he uses the expression v'yisuru. V'yisuru means to investigate, right? But it's got a double meaning. So when Moses told them v'yisuru sa'oretz, they should investigate the land, and the idea was to bring back a report about the processes of how they should conquer the land and reveal the good things of the land. He says this word v'yisura, which isn't the regular word for going out to investigate. So our commentators look at that word and have an idea. In particular, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, in his understanding of this word, says, well, the idea of this word v'yisura, it's as you're probably aware, in Hebrew, you can look at a word and sometimes there's multiple meanings in that word, or multiple usages of that word in different times. And the Tzemach Tzedek explained, he explains that the root use of the word of Yisura actually comes from the word yatir or yesur, to increase, to add. And the idea being, you would add to our sense of knowledge, of the land. By investigating the land, you'll add addition. But the Tzemach Tzedek added this different idea that's with it. Yesura means more or an addition, and Hashem was telling Moses when he gave him the instruction that the Meraglim, the spies, could go, that the purpose of sending the spies is that when they go, they should bring out the tremendous quality, positive qualities that they will find in the land and report on that, right? What does it have more than others have? And in fact, Caleb and Yeshua when they came back, actually did mention that. But what's important about that is that this explains why the spies had to be sent out by Moshe Rabbeinu, by the leader. Not merely that Moshe agreed to the request, but on the idea being that he in some respects should go and do it himself. But the idea that they were being sent to Israel in order to bring out, to understand the deeper meaning or the positiveness in the hidden quality in Israel. So this is again why I brought that story before. My friend went out and for his own purposes wanted to, see and do the Jewish campaigns to enhance their Jewish life, and he wanted a minyan to say Kaddish. But when the Rebbe mentioned his thing that he did in his talk, the Rebbe took a different approach and saw the positiveness in making this minyan, and turned things around and said this whole purpose of business and the whole purpose of all the being there together was in order to build a new Mikdash Ma'at, to build a small sanctuary. We talk about, as we said, we talked about in this period that the holy temples were destroyed, but each one of our shuls, each one of our synagogues is a small temple. And each time we make a minyan, or each time we make a service, we make a minyan to Hashem, we make a synagogue to Hashem, whether it be temporary or a permanent one, right? We're making a mikdash mat, we're rebuilding a temple. So and in that we lost. So being Moshe Rabbeinu had sent these spies, which is our parsha, to Israel. Moses and Hashem is expecting that there should be that by sending them out, they would find the positive aspects of it, and when a person is sent by Moses to go and spy out the land, to see the land, the idea is that when you go out, you're adding positive, you're adding value, when you act as Moses sent out these people, you're acting as a representative of Moses, and that representative of Moses is looking towards making things more positive. So, and that person who's your representative, he actually obtains, in a spiritual sense, the power of that person. So those 12 leaders, those 12 spies that went out, had the power of Moses inside of them, and they knew that they had the potential and the capability abilities to succeed. And what were they supposed to find? They, as I said, Joshua and Caleb came back and reported the positive things of the land, that it's a good land, a good land to grow things on, and what is the positive, what is the inner meaning, what is the more or deeper meaning behind that report? We know that land itself, that earth, the earth itself, the earth has the power of Earth has the power of growth. Land has the power of growth. It has the power of birth, and it has the power of growth, and that's the addition that it makes into the world. Everything depends on the earth in some respects, right? The earth on one hand, right, is the lowest level of expression of physicality in the world. But it is on the lowest level, but it provides sustenance to the world. But another level of existence above the earth, inanimate objects, is vegetation, the vegetable world, which grows from the earth. And then there's the animal kingdom, which is another level in terms of hierarchical existence. There is the living living organisms, living beings, which depend on the vegetation and eat the vegetation like the animal kingdom. And then there's mankind. Yet while all of these three are a level of existence, a level of growth, which is above Earth, they all have a dependency on Earth, because Earth and the land has a certain quality that they need, but they don't have on their own. If you look at and examine this idea in Kabbalistic terminology, Hasidic terminology, we have learned together about the 10 spheres, about the 10 powers or 10 attributes of spirituality, and the world exists. The world has these 10 levels. We talked about the 10 spheres, Chochmah, Bina, Das, etc. The lowest being Malchus. Malchus literally means kingship, but it's actually the lowest of the 10 spheres. Yet, and it is the ultimate creative power, or the one which actually implements the creative power of kingship, or creation in the world. So Malchus is the lowest of the 10 spheres, yet at the same time it's sometimes referred as Keser Malchus, the crown of kingship. So what is the crown? When nobility wears a crown, they put the crown on top of their heads. The crown is something which goes beyond and above a person's experience. When we talk about the 10 spirits, we represent them. We give a representation of a human body, and we talk about Chochmah Bina Das being representative of things in the mind. Chesed Gvura Tiferes, the next set of three, to do with emotions, which are in the heart, which is the next sector of the human body. We talk about the next three set, which is the implementation through the hands and the feet, the thighs. And then we talk about Malchus being the lowest level. Yet at the same time, Malchus is considered the Keser. Keser is something which is on top of the head. In other words, it's over the head. So sometimes Malchus is considered, in this aspect, a higher level. So not only is it a source or a conduit through what the power and the light of godliness comes down to give life to the spiritual world, but beneath it. But in certain aspects, Malchus, kingship, creation, actual living and being created, that's sometimes connected to a level which usually even goes beyond the 10 spheres, and that's why it's connected to Keser. And in fact, Malchus itself has got these two aspects, that it is the Keser of the lower dominion in the four spiritual worlds. We talk about Malchus, the lowest level, as it becomes the conduit for life for the next spiritual world underneath it, and becomes like the crown of Keser, so that the 10 spirits of the next hierarchical world takes its spirituality from the level of the Keser Malchus of that same world, of that world, and so therefore we have in ourselves, we have this double double expression as well, because in a person's service of Hashem, we have this idea of the above and the below. What's the above? The above is as man points his eyes to heaven. He sees Shemayim, he sees heaven. And this refers to God's Torah that God gave, the Torah that God gave us, which we employ our intellectual understanding to understand it. And when we talk about that lower realm, the realm of earth, the realm of doing, we're referring to the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Now, I just want to pull out, just as for a moment, that other expression which I mentioned before, that in the Haftarah of the which we're going to read and in Shabbos and Shul, it talks about the end of the vision of Isaiah and his last words, which are the last words which we mention in the Haftarah. We talk about Zion's redemption, the Zion, how the nation Israel will come back and will have its highest aspirations with Hashem again. And we said, and the phrase is, as I mentioned before, that Zion will be redeemed, or that Zion will come back. Zion here refers to the Jewish collective, the Jewish body, the nation Israel, all the people together. They will come back with mishpat, and as translated or interpreted, mishpat there refers to Torah study, because mishpat means judgment, and in the Torah is much of the is all the rules of Hashem. But then in this context, mishpat refers is a general name to all the teachings of the Torah. So Tziyam b'mishpat tipora means that Israel, the collective Israel, will come back to Israel together or via the learning of Torah, and then the second part of that expression is, and all the people who are not of the level, who are outside of the specific level. Tziyam b'mishpat, Tziyam refers to the tzaddikim, the holy righteous people, and all the other people will be redeemed through their good and positive deeds. So this is what we were saying before. Malchus, I'm going back to, so I'm connected the Haftarah and those words to this idea that we've been talking about, that in a person's service to Hashem, a person needs to connect on all the three levels. On his highest level, that is the Kessel level, on the Torah study, which then imbues the mind, and on the action level, doing the positive mitzvahs. So that's reflected in that verse of our Haftarah, and that this is our path. This is our spiritual path to come out of the 3 weeks by building Torah institutions, by building study institutions, and doing good deeds. Now, interestingly, in the Talmud, in one tractate in the Talmud, there's this question. A question is posed: what's better? Is spending your time better on Torah study, or is it better to do fulfilling the mitzvahs? And the Talmud discusses this, and at the end understands that while each one of these ones has a quality for itself, which demonstrate that this particular aspect is greater than the other, nevertheless, the Talmud concludes the Torah study is the best, or Torah study is greater. And why is that? Because it enables the person to know how they're supposed to fulfill the mitzvah. Now, embedded in that teaching that the Talmud says, the commentaries point out that even though while the Talmud has defined Torah study is the ultimate, while Talmud is important, Torah study is greater. At the same time, it stresses that its greatness is only because now the person can fulfill the mitzvah properly. In other words, its greatness is only because it brings you to do a mitzvah, to do an actual deed. And therefore, in essence, since the ultimate purpose of Torah, right, is the mitzvah, then in essence, the mitzvah is greater than actually studying of the Torah, because its ultimate purpose is to bring you to fulfill the mitzvah, the commandments of Hashem. So, going back to how my story of the friend of mine, right? The Rebbe saw his activities as saying that you need to combine all three of the activities. You need to combine the activity of learning Torah, that is, when you make this minyan and you're building the shul, you've got to make this minyan for the purposes of learning, have some Torah aspect that you're learning, some sort of Torah aspect and learning some halacha at that time. You're also doing the prayer, doing the service to Hashem, connecting to Hashem, but you're also doing good deeds by doing the mitzvah of tzedakah. So in that case, when we were talking about putting all the things together of what a person should be doing, we see that a person is doing this idea of Malchus, when Hashem sent these 12 spies to Israel, and we need to combine all three and do all three positive things and to find the positives of everything, and moving ahead and creating and doing all our positive things via the Torah mitzvahs. So even though Moses had appointed these 12 leaders as his personal messenger, they had to understand that each person, or they had to understand that as they are an extension of Moshe Rabbeinu, they have been empowered to be able to find that positive and do the positive things in those three areas that we said, and that each one empowered by Moses has that capability to move ahead and to create extra added value in those three areas of Torah, mitzvahs, and tzedakah. As we said, that our parsha talks, that the Haftarah talks about Tziyam b'mishpat Tapora, that we will come back to Israel and we will be enhanced by our Torah study and by doing the activities of the mitzvahs. The particular problem of the spies was that they didn't recognize that their job was to value add and to move ahead. Their issue was what they saw, that what they understood was that there were going to be too many problems. What they understood was when they came back, the 10 of the 12 leaders came back, and when they said, well, the land is very beautiful, but it's so great, it devours the inhabitants. In essence, what they were saying, that they were scared that they would be go into Israel, and they would be so consumed by the toil of the land, like sometimes when we are shopkeepers on the streets and we've got a shop, and we're so involved in our work and our preoccupation with the earth activities, with our earthly activities, that we forget about our spiritual activities, about the heavens aspect of our work. We're so involved in the Malchus earth aspect that we forget that, in fact, there's a Kesser Malchus, there's a higher aspect of it which feeds all the positives. So Moshe Rabbeinu, our leader, our Rebbe was telling my friend, even though you're going to these shops, tell those shopkeepers that the purpose for their shops, that they're there, is to bring out the positiveness, the spirituality. So make your shop a place of Torah. Make your shop a place of tefillah, of prayer. Make your shop a place of tzedakah, of doing good deeds. And in fact, you might think that your shop is there in order to only do the business that you're doing. No, in fact, turn it around. This is just a medium to be able to do the positiveness. So in this way, Malchus, the lower spiritual level, becomes the Kesser, becomes the crown on the person's head. But the Meraglim, the spies, were saying, no, we'll be totally consumed by our vote, so we don't want to go there in the beginning. But the idea is that we have to keep and be conscious that we can make, and we're empowered to make. We're empowered by all our spiritual leaders. We're empowered by Moshe Rabbeinu. The spies were empowered by Moshe Rabbeinu, and we are empowered by the spiritual power of our teacher, of our Rebbe, that the Rebbe gave us this power, this insight to be able to see into the world that our purpose is, even in the 3 weeks, even in this period of time when we're mourning the destruction of the holy temples. We have to have that vision of Messiah. We have to see that the vision of the rebuilding of Israel, and that rebuilding of Israel, of spiritual Israel, rebuilding for the third temple, which will come speedily in our days. We can rebuild that brick by brick, bit by bit, by all of our good activities that we're involved in, as long as we keep this, remembering that our level of Malchus is actually connected to the Kesser Malchus, that our level of our lower spiritual level, our earth, is connected to our heaven aspect about us, and that's where we draw sustenance. And we live this higher order. We can live this higher order life, empowered by our leaders and our spirituality. Now, our limud Torah and our learning Torah. That when we join all the two, that we will have and we will merit the rebuilding of the third temple in our times, and we'll be able to see the spirituality of the third phase. Okay, I wish you a good week, and hope you enjoyed the class.